Well, guys, my next guest is an independent creator based in Portland, Oregon. He is a huge sci-fi fan, and he's got a project called Thoughtscape that you definitely need to check out. So, welcome, Matt Mayer Lowry.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem at all, man. How you doing today?
Pretty good. It's,
Good.
it's, uh,
It's super cold here in North Carolina right now. Like it rained a bunch yesterday, and now
okay.
it's like deep freezing. So they've got salt on the roads and all sorts of stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah, we're having a little bit of a snowstorm ourselves here. It snowed a couple days ago and it's just been sitting around, and now the sleet or freezing rain is starting up. So yeah, a little unusual for us out here for sure.
Crazy. It's crazy times.
Yes.
So we're here to talk about your Kickstarter project, Thoughtscape, which this will be the third project you've done for Thoughtscape, right?
Yes. Yeah. Correct.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so for those who aren't familiar, right, Thoughtscape is a sci-fi anthology. And I just wanted to know from you a little bit about your background and why sci-fi is the genre choice.
Yeah. I grew up, I guess, comics wise, I grew up reading in the 80s, reading X-Men and all the standard Marvel stuff and G.I. Joe and all that business. But the movies I really gravitated to were sci-fi movies, and it really like got its claws into me, I guess, early. And so when I started writing stuff, that was just sort of was my natural. I don't know. I didn't even really think about it that much. It was just sort of what came out.
Right.
And I think from even when I was writing as a kid, that was pretty much the focus. When I wasn't 10 and it was just straight up GI Joe ripoffs or whatever I was doing at that point. So yeah, it just sort of always came really natural to me, and I really connected with like Terminator and Alien and Aliens when I was younger, and like they kind of scared me when I first saw them.
Right.
And I think that kind of led to sort of a fascination with it, being something that's a little bit, it was like enough outside my comfort zone that it really like kind of drug me in a more compelling way, I guess. So yeah, and then I guess telling stories now, it's, I've, as an adult, I really got into like the old Twilight Zone episodes and the Outer Limits and stuff. And the way that you can, I guess, speak to what's happening now, but tell it in a fictional way with a lot of heightened stuff, really, fit where my head was at.
Right.
And just really spoke to me in that way.
Nice. Yeah. Because if there's anything that my audience knows, right? Like I'm pretty much my bread and butter is like superhero capes and tights, right? That's pretty much my comfort zone as a reader. And I've been trying to branch out here as of late. And the two genres I haven't usually been able to crack, right, are horror and then sci-fi.
Okay.
Horror is just a whole different thing. Like I'm cool with like some horrific elements, but I think a lot of like today's horror comics are just like, or even like horror movies, it's like all supernatural and like demon possession and like stuff. It's like, so I don't want to go over there, right? But,
Yep.
And then sci-fi, you get a lot of like gnarly stuff. But I think the challenge for me with sci-fi has always been the sort of world building, right? So my wife and her family, they're huge Star Wars fans.
Okay.
And so when the last trilogy came out, I guess it was 2015 when they started those. They were like, all right, we're going to the movies. We're all going to go see it. My father-in-law bought tickets for like all 15 of us, or however many.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, all right, I'm not going to be the only one who doesn't know what's going on in this movie. But I had tried to crack episode 4 like a million times, just never quite got through it. But I just kind of binge watched and just like, all right, we're just going to get through it. And then I think it's like the middle of Empire Strikes Back, and then like Yoda finally gives you the sort of allegory. It's like, oh, this is a religion, and there's the light side and the dark side, and people. It's a story about redemption. It's like, oh, okay, now I get it. I get these species, and we're fighting, and okay, now I get it.
Yeah, something to hold on to. Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
but and I think that's always been the sort of challenge for me. when it comes to sci-fi. And when I started reading Thoughtscape, it was very much like, hey, let's get the world, like understand the rules or where we are, and then now let's have fun.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell the audience a little bit more about what Thoughtscape is about, or maybe like sort of the like sort of uniting theme of the different stories, since it is an anthology.
Yeah. So basically, I just wanted to tie everything together but do it in sort of a loose enough way that the stories could stand on their own. And so what I noticed as I was writing these stories, and this comes, it's very Alien, Blade Runner-esque, Terminator as well, RoboCop, like where there's an evil corporation as part of this, part of the milieu, right? And so, so basically, there is a corporation at the center of the Thoughtscape universe called LifeTech, and the conceit of the series is basically that they have figured out how to access a dimension where every thought that has ever been thought exists. And so they are exploiting that and commercializing that and trying to make money off of it by producing Thoughtscape comics is sort of the conceit. And so so basically we use that in a way to just like really have fun with the world building as much as possible. And like, it could get really heavy, and like we've got a lot of heavy, like I guess, world building stuff in there. But basically each episode begins with sort of like a note to you as the reader, pretending that you are part of the team that is pulling these thoughts down out of the Thoughtscape. And each issue begins with like an HR note to just the general team, right? And so like I spent lots of time in corporate America and software development and everything. And so it really just started as a way to like kind of mock a bunch of the very mockable stuff in those environments and have fun with it. Obviously influenced by something as sarcastic as RoboCop or something like that. But to really like kind of, so basically like a way to like with one page flesh out at the beginning of the issue kind of what the situation is, and then what you dive into the stories. And sometimes the stories will have a LifeTech element to them, sometimes they won't, but then each of the stories is very loosely tied together in this continuity, and then also to different degrees tied to some kind of fear or outcome of technology, but not in a real like over the top way. It's more just sort of like incidental, or maybe like a little bit of a starter idea. That's sort of where it ended up evolving there really naturally. I was writing these short stories that weren't necessarily connected, but I kept putting these companies into them, and I was like, well, if it'll just be the same company every time. And that way they ended up having sort of this loose connection, which is fun. And then if you want to piece them together, you can like figure out, is that character this character too? You can kind of like just play with it in your head in a way that's hopefully not too, I don't know. I don't like world building that's really onerous and like puts a lot of like, I don't know, more stock in the world building than it puts in the stories and the characters. That's not appealing to me. So so hopefully we pull that off of not doing that.
No, for sure. Cool. Now what's really cool, I want to get into the stories. I want to save that for a little bit, but one of the things that I like is that they are short stories, right? But you've done a sort of longer form work before. Why kind of settle into the sort of short story format?
It was really a sort of a practical consideration. I did two graphic novels for Dark Horse, called a series or a two graphic novel series called Life Formed, sort of a YA sci-fi adventure thing. And when the second book of that came out, I was there's the fantastic artist on that book, Cassie Anderson. Like we got done with that, and somehow over like the course of 5 years or so, we'd done like 400 pages of work together. But that was really the only comics that I'd created. And so I wanted to like branch out and just work with more artists, and produce like different types of stories and different styles. And so I'd been finding people online constantly whose work was amazing, and had been following them a bunch, and just started reaching out to folks to see if I could hire them to do, a 12-pager or an 8-pager. And so like the length is very much a function of being what I can pay for, right. Or it started out that way at least. And so, yeah, just like the idea also of being able to, writing a longer format thing is difficult, but it's like a totally different challenge than trying to nail a complete story in a handful of pages. Right. And so, I wanted to like figure out how to do that and write tighter, just like get a lot more variety into my portfolio, I guess, for lack of a better word. And yeah, so that sort of came from that. And then Thoughtscape came out of, now that I've got a few of these, like, what do I do? Like, how do I package them up and try to get people to check them out? So yeah, that's pretty much it, I think, for that. Yeah.
Got you. So it's funny. I was going to ask you how you assemble the team. And I think one thing I want to stress to those who are watching and listening to this, right? This is a true anthology. So there are 3 issues so far. Right now, the Kickstarter would be funding issues 4 and 5. But each one has like between 3 and 4 short stories in it. And they're varying tones. They're different art styles. Like they each story in the anthology sort of hits a different nerve. And I think that's really cool. But I was going to ask you how you assemble those art teams. Do you cook up the story with the artist in mind? Do you see what the artist does and it's like, oh, well, let's try to tailor a story to this? Or how does that work for you?
It's been pretty different with a lot of them. So we've got 2 ongoing, we've got 2 serialized stories that each get, 6 pages in each issue. And then we've got usually 2 self-contained short stories. And so for the first one, for Thoughtscape 2319, which is sort of like the flagship story, it's Dave Law is the artist on that. And Dave and I like met at the first con I ever tabled at. He was there as well. And we just kind of hit it off, talked a little bit, and then a couple years later, we were back at another con here at Rose City in Portland, and we went out after the con was done and like talked about stuff, and then like I was working on some of the ideas for Thoughtscape, and I was just like, oh, what? Like, Dave seems really cool, and his art's really great. Maybe it would work on this, and he was into trying that out. So that was a real sort of like organic relationship buildy thing. And then other ones have been very much like I wrote the story, and then tried to connect with a couple different artists. Things didn't work out. I find somebody who works great, and then we get it done. Like Tyrell Cannon, who does like this amazing action art stuff. We've got a couple like black and white short stories in the first couple issues. The first story I did with him was actually one that I just written. It was one of the first ones I wrote, and didn't really have an artist in mind for. I was just trying to like execute a short script. So I eventually ended up taking it to Tyrell, and he did an amazing job with it. But then I was also at the same time seeing him do, this was a long time ago, but he did this Inktober where he was just doing all this amazing action stuff, like a different amazing piece every day. And I was like, oh, we did this story and it was great, but it was all very contained and like kind of in an office and like not it. And so it's like, okay, well, I need to like do some action thing with him. So basically I wrote just a really loose script where each page was just kind of like the most basic of actions with like some high level idea of what I would write for like narration over the top of it. And then he just went off, and I was just go nuts with this, like do whatever you want to do. And then he gave that back to me, and then I actually lettered that one. So I got to like write my sort of hard boiled action captions over the top of his stuff, and really kind of embrace his style and like not, hem him in with a tight script. Yes, it's been kind of all over the place in a way that's really worked out, and a lot of it's just me like finding folks, following them for a while, getting to know their work, and in the best cases, I think like seeing what they can do and what they could bring to something, and really just kind of like hoping that they knock it out of the park. And most of the time that's worked out. Like Dessalina Fletcher did a story in the third episode or third issue. That's about a girl who comes across a contaminated possum, and Dessalina just like I saw one image she did of a girl in a record store, like behind the counter on the phone, real moody, real colorful, but still like somehow she's able to do this like really colorful and poppy, but still really dark in tone. And that image captured that, and I was like, yeah, that's perfect. Like that needs to, like, she would be perfect for this. So so it's really just about that, like casting folks that would be a good fit, or sometimes like a fit you don't expect. There's a story in the first one that's really done by Lisa Nafziger, who has a really cartoony style, but the story is super dark. So the style sort of like lures you in, and you maybe don't know what's going to happen, and then it goes in some unexpected directions, which is fun to like play with that contrast of styles. So so it's been a little bit different each time, but definitely like challenging and interesting to put it all together. So
sure. So we've been dancing around, we've been tiptoeing around it, but I did want to sort of shout out some of my favorite stories
for sure,
in the anthology, right? So of course, Thoughtscape 2319, Perish the Thought. We get a piece of it in each issue about this this life tech information officer who's just kind of out patrolling the galaxy and stumbles on like just this sort of, it's like a warring faction. Like she's in like this like abandoned church. Well, it's not really abandoned. Somebody came in and just kind of, went to town, right?
Yep.
And so she's on this sort of rescue mission and finding out how deep she's in over her head, with each episode. And I really enjoyed that one.
Excellent.
The story in the second volume that I like a lot is Drones, about this guy who basically like works for Life Tech and is like, he goes on these missions to like basically like kill this like sort of alien species. Like it almost looks like he's playing video games, like going to an arcade for work and then racking up the points and then going home, and that's how he kind of spends his life. And then he's kind of like descends, like, and I don't want to spoil it, but watching the effect his job has on him is really awesome.
Cool.
And then there was another touching one that I won't even give the plot to, but The Griever I really liked a lot. And then you mentioned Adorable Orphans, right? With the really cutesy art style, and it goes places that you don't see it going, and that's really fun. It reminds me, that one reminded me a lot of like Stray Dogs. It came out a couple years ago. And it was like this really cute Disney Don Bluth dogs, but that it's like a serial killer murder mystery. It's like, what?
Totally. Yeah.
And then you mentioned Playing Possum as well, which I enjoyed. That one's like this girl, she comes across this contaminated possum, and then the effects are just like, what? Like, how did that happen, man? Like, where did the stories come from?
A lot of them, it's usually like a little bit of an idea that then sort of like I just make a note of it and of like the sort of like the seed of it or whatever, and then it just kind of like either by actually working on it, like trying to script it, or by just like thinking on it, or like having some other idea occur and putting them together, like sort of evolves. Like Playing Possum, I run a lot around Portland, and I was out running and I came across like this deer carcass on the side of the road, and that just, so I got an idea about like a really like didn't quite make sense idea about some kids getting like shrunk down and trapped inside a dead animal, and then somehow that eventually like became the Playing Possum story. So so sometimes it's a little wacky, and then other times like the let's see what's like Drones was basically like I'd read, you know, back in the I don't remember when it was, the mid Iraq War or whatever, when I read some article and then read a book or part of a book about these drone pilots who were basically like going to a warehouse in the States and running missions in Iraq on, you know, predators. And I was like, oh, that seems like it could really mess you up.
Right.
I wonder what that's like. That's pretty, so it was kind of taking that idea and running with it. And, I think Adorable Orphans, you know, my kids played with American Girl dolls when they were little. And so one time we had the calendar was like sitting in the kitchen. I was like, I think like, what if they were not nice? And what would so just like kind of taking that, and then like I just keep a giant notes file and start kind of like iterating through stuff and kind of wait for them to hit. And then some stuff writes really fast. I wrote Drones like in a couple days. And then Playing Possum, I think, you know, gestated for like a couple months as it kind of like became a different thing. The Griever was actually like a life form short story idea that I had based on just a drawing that Cassie had done. And this was like a decade ago, or close to now. And I had just always wanted to do something with that idea. And then when I was coming up with some of the Thoughtscape and Life Tech conceits, I was like, oh, that I could maybe do that here, and it could be, you know, this instead of a life form thing. So I don't know if that answers the question or not, but yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, no, I love Life Tech as a framing device, right? Like you can go as deep into it, or, you know, as shallow as you want, right?
Yeah.
And so it's fun, right? Because it's like, all right, well, yes, it's an evil corporation, but I mean, we got, on one hand, we've got people sort of volunteering to be a pawn of the evil organization. On another, it's like, you know, it's a corporate. It's like, I don't know, social media, right? Like harvesting your data, like you're the product in social media.
Yes.
Right. And so it's like you're participating because, you know, you want these cool things for your family or whatever, but it's like, it's still exploitation. And I think, you know, what I'm coming to appreciate about the sci-fi medium is that you can make these commentaries, you can draw these parallels, but if you're good at telling a story, it doesn't feel like a lecture. It's just, it's a fun time, but then it's like, that's interesting.
Yeah. I think like, you know, like when I was a kid, other than comics, I was a horrible reader, but the one book I really latched onto was The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury, which basically is the story of us colonizing Mars and, or a story of us colonizing Mars, but it's done in all these little like, just short story formats thing. Like they're connected, but only very loosely. They take place over a long period of time. But it was very much that. It was basically like the story of, you know, America getting colonized but done on Mars, and just showing all these different impacts that, of course, no like 13-year-old kid is going to like think that he's getting anything but a lecture when he, you know, if you just told him that. But reading that book, like just super effective and you know, extremely emotional and you know, stuff that sticks with you, because it's real concise, and like just the impact is pretty heavy. So it's when it's done well, it's really good, I think.
For sure. So all right, let's play a game, right? I want to let's get into, I'm new to sci-fi, right? And so I'm taking recommendations.
Okay. So
I guess let's go top 5 movies.
Ooh, okay. Like how like deep cut or pretty I mean, surfacey, or
I'm new. I wouldn't know if it's deep.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Right. Let me think. Okay. So Like Alien? Have you done Alien?
I've done none of it. I
Okay.
watched Terminator, and I vaguely remember RoboCop because I'm a
Okay.
'90s
Okay.
kid. So it's like there's
Yeah.
some '80s stuff that I've seen, but not a lot.
Okay. Alien then for sure.
Okay.
Um, top five is tough, and some of it, some of this stuff is like Blade Runner is great.
Okay.
If you haven't seen Blade Runner, but it's also slow
Mm,
in a way that is 80s ish. But I think it's a pretty like foundational one. And then you've got Aliens, which is just like your all out action follow up to Alien.
okay.
Oh, I feel like I'm gonna just forget some that are gonna feel ridiculous afterwards. We got to look around my room here and see what I've got. There's let's see. There's a really cool one called Miracle Mile, which was like kind of an indie, and it's pretty wild. It's basically sort of an end of the world story, like not a spaceship sci-fi, and it's got a pretty Twilight Zone-ish premise, where a guy answers a payphone, and someone tells him something bad that's going to happen. I don't want to spoil too much of it. So that's a great one. And then like Road Warrior is one of my the second Mad Max movie is incredible. And I go back to that one a lot. I watched that when I was a kid, and it's very much in that zone of like, I was probably a little too young for it, just like I was a little too young for Terminator, and but all the more fascinated because of that. And then Terminator would be sort of my top one. But
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So
I feel like so much of sci-fi is trying to warn us of an impending danger.
Yes.
Right?
We ignored it. We ignored it completely.
Every bit of it we did.
Yep.
So if there's a danger that's on your horizon, right? What's that thing that bothers you, right? When we're looking at the real world, what's that thing that you see as a threat that's like, we should probably do something about this?
Yeah. I mean, I think that everything feels like a symptom of capitalism to me. So like, I think AI is bad, and I don't know why we're doing any of this. And like like you said, like people have been telling us not to do this for 70 years at a minimum. And like, what are we doing? But I mean, I think it's all just a symptom of like capitalism and trying to exploit people for money instead of just taking care of people. So I feel like capitalism is the true problem. But I don't know if that's stoppable or not. It's very, very tough to imagine. So I think at a minimum, I would say like, let's stop let's just stop the AI stuff. It would, because it's going to be, like I just saw a tweet the other day that somebody said, reporting that I think it was the people that had done ChatGPT, the OpenAI people, had said like, we couldn't make this without using copyrighted material. And I was kind of like, well, okay, like then you shouldn't make the
Don't
thing.
make it. Right.
Like, yeah. So if we stop there and then tried to sort of like step back and examine why we're doing that, as opposed to just I guess it seems like a boring answer, but yeah.
I guess that makes sense, right? I guess to bring it even more philosophical, right? Because if there's not capitalism, then what other economic model is there, right? We got socialism, we got communism, and I think the common enemy in all three is greed, right?
Yeah.
The reason any of them fail is just greed, and this desire that we have for more, whether it's for status, whether it's for comfort, but it's just like, all right, give me more, give me more, give me more. And eventually, for me to have more, somebody's got to have less.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know how we're going to solve for greed.
Right. Exactly.
2,000 years of human
Yeah.
existence.
Yeah. It seems tough, but
Right.
yeah, AI is maybe a good place to start. Question what we're automating and why we're automating it, and like,
Right.
what do we really? Because with the AI thing, it's like, what do you want? Like, if you're just connecting to a computer,
Mhm.
what's the, like the art, especially like being about like human connections.
Yeah.
It feels like to me, seems like let's at least like preserve, put some lines in the sand and preserve some of this stuff that we can. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because of even like startup culture, right? Like in tech world, it's always about the MVP. What's your minimum viable
Yes.
product? Like, okay, let me do the least amount of work so I can go to market. And it's like,
Yep.
well, are you making something worth making? Or are you like it's just a means to the end? Like, okay,
Yep.
guess that's
Yes.
what we're doing.
What's the exit strategy after the MVP? Yeah,
Right.
it's a pretty it can be not always, but it can be a
Mhm.
pretty toxic stew. I feel
Right.
like that hasn't led to a lot of great stuff. It feels like if we look back at the last 25 years or so. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, okay, bringing it back to the art. So, one thing that I love about Thoughtscape, of course, it's a true anthology, which is great for someone like me who may not be great at sitting through a ton of world building. It's like, all
Yeah.
right, quick hits. Now let's genre switch a little bit and go back and forth, right? But what ties it all together really well is the design, right? Like you've got these, I don't know, dare I say Hickman-esque like data pages,
Yeah, for sure.
but it's the thing that really sets the book apart from a lot of stuff that just kind of comes to my email. And it's like, I get it. Everybody's not working with like a crazy budget or whatever, but it's like when you open up your Thoughtscape book, like you're going to feel like it came from something much bigger than just a Kickstarter campaign.
Cool.
Right? What was it about the design? Did you have a background in it, or that just seems very intentional?
Yeah. I've been doing well. So first of all, I brought in a friend of mine who I went to high school and college with, and who's an amazing graphic artist. And I hired him to do the logo and basically like a branding kit. And then I took the elements that he'd put together, and I've been doing UX design, web design, and graphic designs for 30 years in different formats. And so, or more than 30, yikes. And so, yeah, so I basically I got, John Larson was my friend. I got that kit from John, all this amazing work to kind of like play with different ideas for, little logo bugs and all that kind of stuff. And just start laying out the pages, and he did some page layouts as well. And so like just kind of like iterating on things. But it was important to me, like I'd done enough with the Lifeform graphic novels to know like I wanted a lot of control because those books were cool, but always like, because I've been doing it for so long, it's hard not to want to like get my hands on even like the title pages, and stuff. And so, so I wanted to like have a lot of control, make sure I got what I wanted out of it. And I wanted each page I wanted like the whole package to feel worthwhile. I didn't want anything to be like, a throwaway element. So like, let's use every page to like help at least set the mood, and at best like help tell the story. So it was, and tying it together in like 2000 AD was a big influence on this project as well, which I feel like has that sort of unifying themes and unifying design. And then, like you said, that Hickman is definitely an influence as well. And the Powers of 10 and House of X stuff was definitely some of my favorite stuff, mainstream comics wise, of the last decade or so. Sure. But ever since I started reading his stuff ages ago, like I've always admired that, like, building upon what you're seeing on the page with this stuff that's dense. And if you want to, it's like the stuff at the back pages of Watchmen. Like if you decide you want to just skip that, you can skip it and you'll be fine. But if you
Right.
want to dig into it, it's like something more. So it, I wanted to be like a really compelling package, and follow that all the way through to the printing. So like we printed it up on uncoated paper stock, so it's got kind of like a Vertigo early 90s DC Vertigo feel.
Right.
And just have a lot of control over it. So yeah.
No, it's definitely well done, right? Like I'm reading PDFs, but it comes through even like it, they look amazing.
Awesome. And that's good to hear.
It's funny because you sent it to me. We started talking right before Christmas. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna take this sort of holiday break. I'm gonna see how much I can get through. And I kept coming back to them. Right. And like, a lot of times it's like, all right, I'll read this story so that I'm familiar with it. But it's like, no, like I just kept, and I'm just gonna read this data page, right? Like,
right. Yep.
Have fun with. All right. So that's really cool. I really enjoyed that element of it. All right. So you are kickstarting issues 4 and 5 of Thoughtscape. One, why multiple issues at a time?
I guess it worked well last time, and it made it so that doing the Kickstarters is a ton of work. Mm-hmm. I've been trying to dial myself back, but like I tend to put as much effort into creating the graphics and stuff for the Kickstarter as I do the book. And so it starts, I'm realizing now why somebody might not do that. But it just takes up a lot of time. It takes you away from writing, and any other hobbies or families you might have, or whatever. And so being able to like do one a year but get two issues out of that felt like a good pace. And like so we funded the previous one last year at the same time, and it just worked out really, like the rhythm of it felt nice. It was like, okay, we'll get this done, and then the final art will come in if I don't already have it, and then we'll get it to the printer by X time, and then by like end of summer we've shipped both issues. And so it just felt like a nice, reasonable pace. It's turning out to be a little tougher this time to get up to where we need to be, and both these issues are 60 pages, so it's a little bit spendier than the last time. And but the stories are pretty great, so I hopefully we can make it happen. So that's pretty much why. Because running one a year felt better than trying to do two, and really like put the effort into it that needs to take place. So
yeah, no, that makes sense. And I like that you get more than one a year, right? I have a lot of friends that do Kickstarters, and, it's like every year they're funding the one issue. Yeah. And, especially if it's something like a superhero story, you might forget what happened last time around, and it's a whole year for the next issue. So it's an anthology, so you feel like you're getting a bunch of stories in one anyway. There's 60 pages and you get two.
Yeah.
So
it's cadence. It can be rough. It's a rough pace to do one issue a year of like especially a standalone story. It's definitely one of the limitations of the crowdfunding game, I feel like, there. So
for sure. So as we're recording this, I'm trying to make this live as quickly as possible. We got about 12 days left in the campaign?
Yes.
And so Thoughtscape issues 1 through 5 are on the Kickstarter. So you can get the PDFs, you can get each issue digitally, you can get each issue physically, of course. I want to say there are variant covers. I'm scrolling through now. You know what? Let me just share my screen. Why not? Cool. Why not do that?
Yeah, we did starting with number 5, if we can make this one work. The idea was to get variant covers going. So we've got issue number 4 there with the chimp reading the comic on the cover. And then with 5, we've got these 3 covers. So you can you can pick from those, or you can get all 3 if you're into that variant deal. I do trading cards that like 4 trading cards with each issue, and then pretty giant, usually process books for each one.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah. And then if you're new to the campaign, I tried to sort of target the little menu of rewards there, so you could see what's up easily. So yeah.
Very nice. No, these are awesome, right? Like the stories are great. The packaging is great. I was jealous watching the thumb through on YouTube. I was like, I gotta get one of these.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
they're pretty fun. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. And it was like
so these are add-on rewards. So
cool.
You can get the Lifeform, the 2 graphic novels I did with Dark Horse. I've got a few copies of those left, so you can add those on to your pledge after you make your initial pledge. There's the Kickstarter add-on thing, and then Packless is a very cool, not exactly the same, of course, but similar-ish serialized anthology by Dustin Weaver, who's amazing. He's worked for, for everybody. Packless is his Image series, and so Dustin is making these available as well. So you can buy basically this whole set, 8 issues of chock full, amazing Dustin artwork. And then if you've really got some money to spend, we've got 3 commission slots from Tyrell. So he's amazing, as we can see here. So all that together, you put yourself a nice sci-fi indie comics package together, hopefully.
Nice, man. This is awesome. Well,
Thanks.
I'm going to leave the links to this campaign in the description below, as well as in the show notes for the podcast, because we're bringing back the audio show. So you guys can back Thoughtscape at Kickstarter. Matt, thank you so much for coming by, and good luck to you. I hope this campaign funds so we can get more of this, because these stories are awesome.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's great talking with you.
No problem at all, man.